There are things that wander the void and drift through our skies that do not belong to the light of day. Cold, lifeless radars tracking phantoms, ancient shadows waking up in the dark. We pretend we understand this world, but we don't. We are not alone. Step past the campfire. Leave your certainties behind. Join in and know that you are not alone. You are listening to the Still Unexplained Files. Let us look into the dark together.
This is Captain Shawn Tabor, and you're watching Still Unexplained Files. Stay tuned.
Good evening and welcome to Still Unexplained Files. Tonight, we're stepping back to January 7, 1948, a cold winter afternoon over the skies of Kentucky that would permanently alter how the United States military viewed the skies. A massive glowing, cone-shaped object spotted moving at incredible speeds. The Kentucky Air National Guard scrambles P-51 Mustangs to investigate. Leading the chase is a seasoned 25-year World War II veteran. His final transmission reports a tremendous size object climbing fast. Minutes later, his plane disintegrates in midair. That pilot was Captain Thomas Mantell, and his death became the first officially recorded casualty of a UFO pursuit. Was it a top-secret government balloon or something truly out of this world? Joining us to break down the dogfight that shocked the nation are our resident co-hosts, Ken and Maria. And tonight we are incredibly honored to welcome a true expert on this specific mystery. He's a retired U.S. Air Force captain, a former nuclear missile launch officer, a Hollywood military advisor for blockbusters like Black Hawk Down and Pearl Harbor, and he has spent nearly 5 decades gathering data and interviewing the family and military personnel closest to this case. Welcome to the show, Captain Shawn Tabor.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. This is where I need a producer, Ken, because this is what I wanted to do.
We'll do that afterwards. I'll
put
that in after.
Captain Shawn, welcome to the show.
Welcome
again. Thank you.
And
let's start with you. Let's start with you. Your history with Captain. Yeah. Go
ahead. Well, once upon a time, I watched a show called Star Trek, this original Star Trek stuff, and then I became enamored of all the military movies and so forth at the time period, and that was during the Vietnam War, and I was of an age that I was starting to think it's not a matter of if I'm going to go, but when I'm going to go. So around 1969-70, I made up my mind that I was going to join the military. Now, that process wouldn't take place till 1982, but I was already on that path. And I decided the best way to do that was to study world history and military history to perfect the craft of warfare. But you know, like a lot of people at the time period, I was an avid D&D player. I played the Star Trek FASA game, role-playing games. In fact, the colonel at our ROTC unit gave me a key to the building, and the deal was each Monday I would brief him on how the games would go, because we'd usually play all weekend, and what he was doing was seeing how people acted as a group. and he was looking at them for leadership abilities and so forth. So anyway, I digress. The point being is, military historian, been fascinated in this, and what drew me to Mantell specifically was a guy named Byron Crawford, who ran a segment, I think it was 75, and from that point on, I was hooked on what happened to Thomas
On the
Mantell.
Road with Byron Crow? Is that what that was?
I think it might have been.
He was like a local news guy too on WHS.
He was.
Yeah.
He was. His son is a sportscaster now on 41, and Byron ran this story, and he had this like model airplane, and there was smoke going around it, and this kind of weird UFO, and then told the story. And it was from that, just from that point, I was in junior Air Force ROTC in high school, and I contacted Godman Field, and lo and behold, they still had like a 3-page briefing sheet on what had happened. So I got that, and then I was kind of stuck. When you're 16, 17, it's like, what do I do? And that's where college came in. College taught me how to do research. The Air Force, and afterwards, allowed me to do the research so that I could come up with this information.
Ken, real quick, give us your history with the captain.
Captain Shawn here he's used to come to my events, and he is, being a huge Star Trek fan, he's been going to a local convention called Wonderfest for a number of years. And I met him and his son, and he had just such an amazing story. All these years he'd come out to shows, and people, when we were talking about it, he's worked with some people I knew in Hollywood, always in a military advising way, but he's also a prop builder. He does amazing props. There was an amazing setup this year at Wonderfest where they had this room filled with amazing Star Trek props and other props, but due to that entertainment connection, and I remember many, many years ago seeing him on Sightings. Totally forgot about it. It just went past me. You know how you get older and life happens and you forget. And I remember I saw him at Wonderfest. He didn't see me. I wasn't there that long. And it reminded me I wanted to get him on the show. And I looked up and totally forgot that he was on Sightings several times. And when it popped up, when we were talking to you guys about, Maria and I were talking about the Captain Thomas Mantell quite a bit. Captain Tabor here, he popped up a lot, and I thought he knows a lot. I've never talked to him about it. This would be actually the first time I've spoken to him about this. Okay. So what he knows is new for me on this. I don't, I'm very curious to see what his thoughts are, what he's drummed up, what is suspicious to him, what is not, and pretty much kind of see where it's going to be. And hopefully sooner than later, that amazing book comes out is what I'm hoping.
Well, it's now time to whet your curiosity, or whatever the expression is. That's probably not the right expression.
Playing the word moist.
Let's get at it. I want to start this with the chase and the crash. So I'm going to build. Or no, I'm going to take it back. Let's start with the scramble. I'm setting the scene here. It's the afternoon of January 7th, 1948, and these are the initial sightings. There's initial ground sightings over Maysville, Owensboro, and Frankfort that prompted Godman Airfield to scramble the P-51 Mustangs. As a reminder, Captain Mantell, this is not a rookie pilot. He's a highly decorated World War II veteran who flew on D-Day. Guess Captain, take it from here, from the scramble scene, or this moment of the story.
Okay. I think a little background might be in order, just to, how did we get from point A to point B to eventually C. And the reason that it's taking me so long is, at some point you keep finding more information, but then there comes a cutoff point. And the cutoff point for me was all of the principals that participated in this event are now deceased. When people are alive, it leads to he said, she said, different accusations. And now there's and I also found with the passing of time, memories change as well. The closer to the event you are, the more accurate it is. So combined with written documents and then the information that I gathered in the 80s, as far as talking to living participants, was a lot. It was good for me, but I also had to watch because, there was one guy in the Air Guard who thought I was talking about the Battle of the Bulge. So, it was, he was transformed back to being in the Air Corps at that time period. So, you have to kind of do that. And people see movies and stuff too that heavily influence them. So now we come to Mantell. Mantell was indeed a brave man. There's no doubt about that. He was young. He was ambitious. He was tall. He had struggled to get into the cockpit of a fighter aircraft. He's that tall, but he always wanted to be a fighter pilot. So the military, in their infinite wisdom, put him in a C-47 where he dropped paratroopers, as you say, on D-Day. He received several air medals, and he received a Distinguished Flying Cross for heroism when a flak burst hit his aircraft, and he basically flew in two engines. The fuselage was shredded. But now we have to look at Mantell. He was an avid gun collector. Every base he stopped at, he would pick up enemy weapons and ammo and so forth. So when the flak burst hit his aircraft, one of his crew members said, well, the reason we blew up so bad was he had all this German ammo in there and it exploded. So that is not in the official reports. That's from his crew member. But that adds something to me about Mantell, the pilot. So he gets out of the service. He comes back to Louisville and starts a air service. He's married. He has two young children. He's looking to stay in, and so he joins the Kentucky Air National Guard as one of the first pilots. So when we reached January, they actually were down in Florida. They had flown down to Florida for a gun meet where they were using their 50 caliber machine guns. Each P-51 had 6 50 cals on it, and they had been doing target practice and so forth. They came back and they had spent the night in Georgia. Now the deal there was the weather front had come in. It was bad weather in Kentucky, so they were servicing the aircraft and so forth. The official report from Georgia says none of the aircraft had oxygen, nor were they serviced with oxygen. However, the ground crew from the Guard that went down there disagrees with that and says that while some of the planes didn't have oxygen, it was standard operating procedure to put O2 into the aircraft, whether they had a mask or not. And one of the men actually had a spare oxygen mask. It was a bailout bottle, Al Clements, and he had it because he had been a P-38 pilot in the Mediterranean and had several encounters that taught him to always carry a spare oxygen bottle. So the pilots had been taken down by a guy named Tyler, and they picked up these aircraft the next day, which included Mantell, and they were to fly back. As they were coming back, they were running a little low on fuel. The control tower from Godman, led by Colonel Hicks, gave them a call and said, hey, we have a suspicious item over the field, and could you guys check it out? Well, Mantell was pretty eager to do so, but one of the guys, a guy by the name of Richard K. Hendricks, who was Mantell's wingman, said, hey, Skipper, I'm low on fuel. I got to get out of here and go home. Which all sounds good. Hendricks later became the commander of the Air Guard, but he became a better pilot because of this incident. The reality was he had a hot date with the woman he was going to marry. So he told them, like, I'm bailing out of this. So he drops out. This leaves Hammond, Clements, and Mantell to go after this. Now, Hammond is kind of the unknown factor. Never could get a hold of any relatives or anything. I found him, his gravesite eventually. Doesn't say too much, but he was relatively new to this area. And in fact, after this incident, he wasn't here too long, and he left and went to another part of the country and joined another air guard. But Al Clements, as I say, was the P-38 pilot who had learned to carry the O2. So he had Clements and said, okay, we're going to follow you, Mantell. So they go up, and they're flying up, and at some point, Mantell says, I see a tremendously huge object. Mm-hmm. And there's other chatter that's going on back and forth. Clements was following strict military protocol. Hammond was his wingman. And since Hammond didn't have any oxygen, at some point, Hammond said, I can't go any higher. I'm getting woozy. This got to stop. So Clements tells Hammond to drop out. And then Clements has to get him down before he can return to the fray. Now Mantell is by himself. Mantell now becomes, I hate to use the term fixated, but he was certainly drawn to whatever he saw. And when he went finally too high, the aircraft, well, did he have oxygen or not? And that is a big debate. One of the problems was after the airplane crashed, the local people came and looted everything before the inspectors got there. They were looting it as they were removing his body from the aircraft. And there is a picture that I have, and now the technology, if we are going to believe the technology, shows that he had an oxygen mask. This would invalidate all of the previous things that the Air Force did, saying he had no oxygen. But the other problem was all of these airplanes were war weary. They were old. In fact, the plane that Mantell was flying had been used in World War II considerably by another pilot, and it was called Passion Wagon. And when I contacted him, he was living in Texas at the time. I said, would you like to see pictures of the aircraft? He said, no, I want to remember it the way it was because it saved my life in World War II. And he was a ace pilot. So anyway, Mantell just gets to a point where he's out of it. The aircraft makes a slight loop, as according to witnesses on the ground, including a lot of people who were youngsters back in the day. And then it heels over, it comes down, the tail and the wing rip off. Now, once that one wing and the tail are off, that thing comes straight down, and it lands in the farmer's field next to his barn, just barely missing the barn.
Let's pause for a second, Captain. So we're now at the point where it's the chase and the crash. This is part of this. But before we finish this segment or that talking point, I just want to bring up that the public reaction during this time, was that it wasn't a faint light in the sky. It was massive. It was a massive bright object visible during broad daylight, causing widespread local panic. So that's the human element. That's the public take. And just kind of recapping what you said. So Mantell and his flight began climbing past 15,000 feet, but they weren't equipped with supplemental oxygen.
Right, 11,000 feet is the cutoff. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. The other pilots broke off the chase due to lack of oxygen, leaving Mantell to pursue the object alone. So now, Captain, take us to Captain Mantell's final radio transmission. Quote, "It looks metallic and of tremendous size. It's going up now and forward as fast as I am." So help me describe the aftermath. The plane is entering a steep dive, crashing on a farm near Franklin, Kentucky.
Correct.
Is that right? Okay. Take us from there.
Yes. Okay. So the aircraft comes down. Mantell was most likely unconscious. I've managed to get his death certificate in the autopsy files by the coroner. It was not pleasant. So when he impacted that thing, and the people down there, they heard it, because you could not mistake an aircraft crashing back then. We're not used to this, but there would be 2, 3, 4, 5 aircraft crashing a day around the United States at that time period. So this thing made a real loud sound when it came down, and it buried itself in the ground. Pretty much without trying to get anybody upset, he was decapitated. So there was no chance of survival whatsoever. And then the transmissions stopped, but there were recordings of those transmissions. It wasn't just a paper thing, because the military, they're we accuse our military of a lot of things, but even I myself know from experience, you have backups for things. I did find the transmissions after 33 years of searching, and I've got those actual transmissions. So those should prove somewhat enlightening when they are released. But again, what you're saying is true. The transcriptions that are provided in Blue Book and other sources are pretty close to accurate. Not 100%, but pretty close to what is on the recordings, and then what the actual military ones are. Is there a cover-up? If that's what we're actually heading to, yes, I can explain that shortly. It's not going to be a pleasant thing, but yes, I do believe there's been a cover-up on it.
Well, let's stay there. Nice segue. How, based on your historical knowledge, how did the Air Force initially react? Behind closed doors with this.
Okay, so you got to remember, the Air Force is different because this was the Air Guard. And the Air Guard sent a truck and an investigative team down to check this out.
Gotcha.
So we're dealing with the Kentucky Air Guard.
Okay.
And it's the new, it's on the way to being the new Air Force and all that type stuff. So you're looking at people who have a different view than, say, the actual Air Force. The Air Force responded by sending a guy by the name of Alfred Loading. Now, Loading was, involved in Project Sign and Saucer. His connection is actually from Roswell. He was an important investigator on the Roswell case. And, Loading had actually patented a UFO for flight. And I don't want to go into this, barrel, but let us just say that Loading was probably there to see if somebody had copied his patent, as opposed to, is it really from outer space? In this case, there are two possible alternatives. One I reject outright, and that is called Project Moby. The head of Project Moby, up until his dying day, said it was caused, Mantell was chasing a balloon that was released on their project. Those are the high altitude weather balloons with sensitive devices on them to study the Soviet Union. And that would be all well and fine if I hadn't talked to the pilot of the Navy aircraft that got Mantell killed. So we're looking at a top Navy project.
Gotcha. All right, let me pump the brakes here. Again, I'm going to get Ken and Maria in to just give their takes with what you've heard so far. Ken, I'll start with you.
I'm very interested in some of the extra transcripts that he hunted down, the recordings. So far, so good for me. He had me at it was not a Skyhook balloon. So I'm at that point where it was something. Where I'm at is that in Madisonville, Kentucky, there were a lot of on-the-ground witnesses beyond other places where they saw. There were people that said it was a massive object. Don't know what that means, because as we've talked about before, Maria and Kevin, just because it's unidentifiable to a civil person who is a civilian, who doesn't have, military experience, doesn't know the new technology that's being out there. It just could be something that we have that they don't know about. It is unidentifiable to them, but definitely wasn't a balloon. And that's what I wanted to get clear for myself from this, to find out what Captain Shawn Tabor thought of it as a balloon or not. So he confirmed that for me, that it, in my belief as well, that not a balloon.
Maria, your thoughts?
I just think it's fascinating. My mother was 14. My dad was 18 at that time. And when that whole case came to my knowledge, because I was like in third grade when I found out about it, neither one of them knew anything about it, had never heard of it. And I was born and raised in Madisonville, and they were too. So I just kind of find that interesting that a lot of the locals didn't really know a whole lot about it unless it was, I guess it was in the newspaper articles. Maybe that's where it came to other people's attention.
Shawn?
Okay. And, I interviewed locals on the ground there. One guy was in his, I think he said he was about 8 or 9 when he saw the aircraft crash. He actually visited the crash site after I did and recovered items. He recovered an important piece, which I took pictures of, but and he loaned it to me for a while, but I returned it to him. Was the cockpit handle, showing that Mantell never tried to release the cockpit, or escape. And it wouldn't have done any good anyway because he didn't have a parachute. Because in those days, on a hop like that, they didn't carry parachutes.
Right.
With that said, I interviewed some people. I also got some testimony. I wasn't unable to talk to the officers because they were deceased, but there were some officers that down in that area that were required to investigate. They saw the item, or excuse me, the object. And again, my brother is currently a law enforcement officer, and as he said, when we interview witnesses, 7 witnesses, everybody has a different story. So it's piecing together what happened from those 7 different stories. And in this case, I interviewed, I think it was 127 people to get the best, and especially a lot of the people Mantell worked with or flew with that day or whatever, whoever I could get on that, because it's the guy that's in the cockpit that's going to know why he left, or, why I had to bail out, like Hendricks. And he had a guilt complex on that his entire life until he passed. But it made him a better pilot and a better Air Force officer, that he wasn't so flippant that, hey, I've got a hot date, I just got somebody killed. At least as a wingman, that's how I felt. As a wingman, you never leave your leader. And would he have made a difference? Oh, don't know. Could he have talked Mantell down by saying, hey, Skipper, we got to go down. We don't have the air. Clements, he landed and then immediately went back up. And you hear stories of, they put ammo in his weapons and stuff. No, they didn't have any weapons in there. The 50 calibers were there, but they had no bullets. They'd already shot them in Florida. And so these had tapes on the end where showing where they had not been fired or anything like that. But there's this story that Clements took off hot, which is a term for being armed for bear. There wasn't time. He had to get back up because darkness was rapidly approaching. And by the time he got back on station, Mantell was already dead. I'm going to try to, I don't know if this will work. Let's see if this will work. Here's a I know we're getting some light there, but that's a picture of the aircraft after it crashed.
Hold on, let me do this. Let's see if that might help a little bit.
Okay. I'm going to just kind of run it back and forth here as best I can.
So if you can take a picture of that and send that to Ken, maybe.
Yeah, I'll get you a picture. I'll get you a picture.
All right, cool.
So that picture has. I found that from a local. I guess it was about 1991, maybe. And they have some tape that the local police put up. You got to remember, again, it's winter. So the public had begun to gather. They were grabbing things, taking a few items. And Mantell was pulled out by a young man who had actually been in grave registrations during World War II. And one of the things I found out was this aircraft was supposedly, taken to Fort Knox and then sent to Ohio and all that. Well, here's the problem. The aircraft was Kentucky Air Guard. It was actually taken to the Air Guard, and it was not. It might have driven through Fort Knox, and some items might have been taken, like part of the engine or something. But the bulk of the aircraft was used as a training device for members of the Air Guard. Now, to show you how I've tried to get proof, the grave registration gentleman, when he pulled Mantell out of the aircraft, he said he was trapped in there so tight that his shoes and boots remained in the plane. So I talked to the head of maintenance at the Air Guard, who said, yeah, we worked on this aircraft for about 3 to 6 months. He said there was a problem, though, when they brought it in. A couple of weeks after they brought it in, there was this ungodly smell. And then he said, I finally crawled up and found the pilot's feet in the cockpit underneath it. So that confirmed what the grave registration guy said. And then the farmer also confirmed about the kind of told me about the decapitation because the family dog was playing with Mantell's scalp days after the crash. So, that's again talking to different witnesses and trying to bring all of this story together to piece the thing. And we will have, the ending of this is going to be more, well, historically speaking, you again have to understand what was going on at the time. The Air Force was seeking independence to be a preeminent service. We dropped the atomic bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. We wanted the B-36 bomber. We wanted a B-47 bomber. The Navy wanted a special super carrier that was going to solve all the world's problems. There's only so much money to go around. So, who was Truman going to pick? Well, can you imagine if the Navy, if it was said at the Navy that they got an Air Force pilot killed? That's not going to look good in the press. So there were attempts to take care of this. And I will throw in the last thing that the FBI was involved in this. This top secret project that was actually being transferred from the Navy to the FBI.
Oh,
so I won't mention what it was because of the book. That'll be a surprise, but it is still in existence and a museum piece.
All right. It's good stuff so far. The explanations I've seen in my research where the military's claimed that Captain Mantell was chasing the planet Venus. Yes. Which I'm dumbfounded. Help me as a civilian, as a non-military guy. How is it possible that a captain with all his credentials, with all his accolades, is chasing the planet Venus?
Well, like I said, I think the argument would be his commander at the time was a preeminent attorney around here named Phil Audrey. And when I talked to Phil, he was actually going to help me get a decoration for Mantell, because when we wind this up, I'll tell you how we come to that conclusion. But he was told by higher authority when we put it in, drop it, because it was going to reopen old wounds. Because again, that's the reason I have waited till all of the principals are deceased. It sounds crude, but last person standing kind of gets to tell what they have found out or what they believe. And that's what I'm doing for these guys. I want justice for Mantell. I want justice for the people that were involved in this. Let's look at it. So Planet Venus, to your question, that was the big thing at the time. Guys are still flying. We got other projects going on, like
that's
they're
fair.
starting.
That's fair, because I got to take my mindset now. I'm thinking 2026, but this is 1940. Well, okay, that's fair. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. So you're looking at all this stuff is new to these guys. What are we seeing? What are we looking at? So the Venus thing is primarily based on an astronomer's who down in Tennessee, who said, oh, he was definitely looking at that. That's in the newspaper accounts and so forth. I will say that I was unable to talk to the astronomer. I talked to both his wife and his secretary, who said he died in a mysterious car accident in the early 50s, because they were quite well aware of the Mantell case. I don't know how to take that. I just relate what they told me. His brakes mysteriously failed and he died in this car accident. But he was their preeminent, expert, if you will. And remember, experts are like rear ends. Everybody's got one. and he was there, giving his point of view. And so it kind of came the mainstream. You will see it. Have you ever seen the movie, not the remake with Karen Black, but the originals, Strange Invaders?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I saw the Karen Black one. Yeah, but go ahead.
Okay. Well, you don't want the Karen Black one. You want the original, and you want the British cut. The British cut, they actually talk about the Mantell case in it.
Oh.
So he's been mentioned in various things over the years, and they talk about it being the planet Venus and stuff. And I will tell you one other thing about military, in my opinion, and remember, I am retired, but something is only a secret if you know it's a secret. So we have a unique thing in this country, even in the 40s, despite coming off wartime contingencies, we have a very free press that allows us access to information that a lot of people don't have. So the people did have some options. The question is the means of transmission. We didn't really have TV, so we're looking at radio and newspapers. And that's where you're getting a lot of this information from. And in the meantime, the investigation teams are doing their thing. And I mentioned the Navy pilot. I will show this, if you can make that out. That is, I've got his full series of maps he sent to me with the flight path that he took and the stop off at Stanford Field.
Nice.
Okay.
So, and I don't know if you guys have noticed it, but in recent years, Mantell has not been getting the play. He's, like you said, he's one of the top three. You have the Arnold situation, you have his, but I think it's because, I really don't even have a good answer for you why it's kind of dropped down. At one point, Henry Winkler wanted to make a movie, but one of the family members who had control at that time was not interested in participating.
I heard that. But that says a lot about the family, too. To me, anytime Hollywood comes calling and the family pushes back like, they're not in it. To me, that's a sign they're not in it for them.
Right. Well, the grandchildren definitely want to make a movie. But, as I tell them, there's a process to making a movie, and it's story. And, because I'm also a writer. And so you have to kind of pick and choose. And the question is, what is the story you tell here? You want to be as truthful as you can, but the nature of Hollywood in itself is going to have some, historical fiction. There are some good movies out there like Tora Tora Tora, which captures the historical, about the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor. That's something I would recommend. But if I'm watching The Longest Day, I'm watching a conglomeration of stories. And I know now from research that not all of those stories are considered accurate. But when, to a 6-year-old kid back in the day, they were definitely, oh, well, this is what happened on D-Day. So again, who's the audience? What are we trying to achieve with this? And, therefore, I think I changed it over from actually doing a screenplay to, or a script, I should say, to doing the book is the better way to go. And if somebody wants to turn it into a screenplay, then they can contact my agent. But in the meantime, again, not to wander all over, but because it is a huge story, why did it kind of, dissipate? And as you so aptly noted, I was on Sightings twice. The second time was because one of the controllers came forward, and fortunately, he sent me a lot of stuff after we connected, and that helped put things together, or a better picture of what was going on in the control tower. And I have here what I would say is, a lot of errors made. The situation might have been different if they had followed their checklist. We always have a checklist, and Mantell may have become a little fixated. And when you get to a certain altitude, if you don't have air, you start doing some strange things. And he stuck with that. And that is kind of leading us towards, I think, something that was summed up not in the Air Force investigation, but in the investigation conducted by the Air National Guard. And I can tell you that if you want, and I will read it verbatim. he died in the line of duty, routine training flight, Operation Order Number 7, 1948. Captain Mantell was flight commander. Upon being requested to pursue the object for identification by an Air Force officer, he acted in the capacity for flight commander and pursued the object. It is the opinion of the investigating officer that Captain Mantell was in the line of duty, having noted on his own judgment in pursuing an object which apparently, in his opinion, constituted circumstances which may have been unfavorable to the security and defense of the United States. Now that's the Air Force.
That's a strong statement.
That is a strong statement.
Yep.
But the Air Force said pilot error, didn't follow checklist, no oxygen. So that you have two. So the most common thing known is what the Air Force put out, in later Project Blue Book, of course, Project Sign, Project Saucer, and it kind of muddies the water. We must not take away whether it was a lapse in judgment, whether it was an issue. He did see something and he was checking it out. Mm-hmm. If he had caught it, he would have found it was a Navy project. But what do? He had no weapons. Do you just report back and say, well, it's some Navy goofball? And that pilot that did that had no clue that Mantell was chasing him because he was so far above Mantell, and Mantell's aircraft could not reach the aircraft that he was chasing.
Do you have any thoughts on? Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, from that distance, you could look like the planet Venus or a balloon.
Mm. No. Okay.
Do you have any thoughts on what Navy project it could have been?
Yes, but I'm going to defer that after going through all this for the book.
Okay. That's fair.
That's fair.
Now, from this, correct me if I'm wrong, Captain. This incident helped kind of shape Project Sign. Is that fair?
Yes, I would say so, because it forced the Air Force to take a look and see what's going on. And like anything else, by the time the Air Force arrived on the scene of the crash site, it was gone. Well, as an example, the aircraft had been moved on the back of a truck and brought up to the Air Guard, not Fort Knox. Again, parts of it were later requisitioned and taken to Fort Knox and then sent up to Ohio for study, like the engine number and so parts of the engine and everything. Right. But we heard all sorts of things. Oh, there's he was irradiated, molecules. They came by, like in Roswell, every bit of piece of wreckage was picked up. Well, except I've got a box full of wreckage in my basement.
Oh wow!
For real?
From Roswell?
From Mantell's aircraft. This is from the P-51.
Yeah, show that again.
Yeah.
Really?
Yes.
They didn't do a very good cleanup job, did they?
No, or they didn't take it, or they didn't. It wasn't.
Well, to them, it was an aircraft crash.
Exactly.
It was a simple aircraft crash. It was not a top. They didn't know. They didn't have all the facts. Like I said, they're jumping to conclusions. It's Planet Venus. Project Moby was still considered top secret at the time, so there was no mention of that. And then the Air Force is able to step in and say, "Oh, it's pilot error." And in a way, it was pilot error. But like I say, he still thought it was a threat. And the individual that did the investigation knew Mantell extremely well, and that he was just not going to be willy-nilly about it. He would have had enough, in theory, common sense to break off the chase. But he was chasing something that he didn't understand and that he could not possibly reach in the airframe that he was flying. And with no air, the outcome was almost a given. And as to the statement that they didn't do a good job, you're right. When we went down there and ran the metal detector through, while I was walking, I saw a piece of metal sticking up. And, there had been cows and pigs and stuff down there for years. They were cleaned out at that time. And I'm like, wow, this is aircraft. And then we started finding more pieces. And the aircraft had actually come down. Trees are in that spot where that aircraft actually came down. So I understood from both the people that owned the residence at the time, the same owners do not have that property, and if you try to get a hold of the person that's there, they are not going to like you at all. So because there is a historical marker down there dedicated to him, it came out.
Exact place where it crashed, correct?
No, it's not. It's away from it, because the people that own it, they don't want to be bothered. There was a recent attempt within the past 5 years to do a television show, which they unlike your podcast, they were trying to pigeonhole me into saying it was a UFO, and I couldn't in good conscience do that. UFO at the time period, but not
the podcast.
UFO.
The podcast is not over yet.
Anybody, yeah, you can still take a good shot at it, but in which case I'll just go, I neither confirm nor deny. But
typical military guy.
but like I say, for me, the biggest thing is ensuring that he is remembered for seeing something that he thought was a threat and acted on it with the information available, and it cost him his life. And we cannot take that away or that courage. He definitely was.
No, we can't. We definitely can't. So for you, it is definitely your interpretation of it. It was a Navy project that was not known by the Air National Guard, and he went up and he was in pursuit of something that to him was unidentified, because it ended up in his pursuit of thinking it was a threat. He ended up dying through whether lack of oxygen or whatever it may have been. And that's what will be written about. Will there be other things that were more of interesting tidbits that might give an explanation of what it was in your book? Is that what you're saying too? What project?
Yes, there will be more. There will be more.
Okay.
There will be more things. I will say that it was one of the first instances of a VTOL aircraft that would have been, at the same time we were developing the flying wing, the YB-49s and stuff that later became the B-2 bomber. There were a lot of different test things, and this airframe that the Navy had was actually something that had been around for 8 or 9 years, and they had just the Navy had just come to the realization that it wasn't for them. It wasn't their cup of tea, because we were switching over into the jet age, and this thing was not going to do it. But it would have a home with another organization here in the United States if this accident hadn't happened. And then it was like, oh, we're going to drop that. So, I mean, it's just to close up on the stuff, the radiation thing. Well, guess what? That's the reason I got called by these other organizations, was because I was running around with my Geiger counter going, it's radiation. Well, how about that nuclear power plant down there that poisoned everybody and gave them all sorts of illnesses? Oh, yeah. That's what I was picking up on my Geiger counter. It wasn't radiation from the aircraft. It was fallout from that power plant, according to some of the experts. I had a friend who had leukemia, and she moved up here, and they traced it to that power plant. I don't know. She moved on, so I don't know how it turned out for her, but. There was that issue there. It was an interesting time to be on both of the sightings and find the stuff. And like I say, one gentleman who had been a child at the time, he went back after I did and got some things. And then when they got this new owner, they're like, we really don't want, we don't want everybody to know that our farm was the place where this guy died. And for years, the fuel tank of the P-51 set down there, but about 2 weeks before I got there, somebody picked that up and took it out of there.
Another souvenir, right?
Yeah,
for somebody.
Absolutely. And I was able to see. That's when talking to some of those people, they gave me like these pictures that they had that you saw, and they gave me some pieces that they had picked up, and that all leads to the story of why the investigation that the Air Guard / the Air Force did is not complete because the crowd gathered and took pieces. I mean, Franklin, Kentucky, that was the biggest thing that had happened to him for a while.
So you were talking about your friend who had gotten radiation poisoning, which causes leukemia that we know.
Yeah, long-term exposure.
Long-term exposure. You were a nuclear launch officer in the Air Force, correct?
I was. I was in 2 different systems: ground launch cruise missiles and Minuteman II.
And you're familiar with the book by Robert Hastings about UFOs and nukes, correct? Or so familiar with that? Okay.
I am.
Do you have an opinion on some of that and what that could have been, in your opinion?
That's come up. I'm a member of a Air Force association, and that has come up recently. And you get people on both sides who were actually stationed there. I worked with a commander that was at Minot. He calls it extreme poppycock. Other people say it was Soviet inspired. And other people believe it's actually, otherworldly things. There's no clear consensus. And, so honestly, I've read the book by Hastings. I know he was I think he was a young janitor working at the control center at the time. And his dad was stationed at Minot, which we call Why Not Minot, but just because of where it's located. Other people love the base. There was a reason I was stationed at Missouri because I didn't want to go to Minot. And good golf courses, though, I understand.
Priorities, Captain. Priorities.
Yeah, absolutely. So not so much me. I was the racquetball guy. And that's the younger officers who came back in the 80s. We were all in the racquetball, not so much golf. But I don't think I'm qualified to other than a personal opinion to say what I've seen so far is superficial in the sense that nobody can come to a consensus. Okay. You're talking about command posts and so forth. I know from my experience setting underground in Missouri, I did not see anything like that or have any issues other than mechanical issues or personnel issues or whatever. There was nothing weird or strange other than the fact that, I had to babysit 50 ICBMs.
Just 50?
Great babies.
There were 150, but each squadron had 50. Yeah. And I was my squadron had that, and that's I'm just happy that we didn't have to use them, and I got out of that thing alive.
Well, we're grateful for your service, and we're glad you didn't have to use them either.
Yeah. Let me before in closing, real quick. We great stuff on the Captain Mantell. So. If I'm hearing this correctly, Captain Tabor, there's no ET angle here.
I do not feel that there is. I cannot honestly say that there is, and I'm not attempting to cover this up. It's just that if I thought there was something, wouldn't it be nice to be known as the person like, hey, guess what? I've solved the mystery. In a way, I've solved it, but not the way people are going to want it solved. Because people will, no matter what the deal is, hey, X-Files fan, right? Did you see the last season where they have Dr. They, and he's like, people are going to believe what they want to believe anyway.
That's a great episode.
I will present the evidence and the facts, and they can do whatever they want with it.
So it's a great episode.
It was a great series, and it was a great episode too.
And that should have been the ending. That should have been the ending episode, in my opinion.
Should have been.
That should have been right.
Should have.
And I'm glad. I think we're X-Files fans here. But I digress.
So you've had a
get Maria in real quick.
Go ahead,
Maria. Go.
You've had a real fascinating career in films and stuff like that. Can you talk to us about your time with Star Trek and the military channel?
Yeah. So what happened is when I got out of the service, I decided to take the Cold War had been won, right? So I decided that I would take an early retirement, which I did. And I needed something to do. So we've already established nuclear weapons. What do you do after that? How about Hollywood? So I was sitting on the couch and complaining about the writing on Star Trek Deep Space Nine and not using complimentary words either. So my buddy said, well, you got a big mouth. Why don't you do something about it? So I'm like, okay. So
Let's hear some of those colorful words, Captain.
No. We don't want to do that. Got an image to maintain, right? My daughter would beat me. So with that said, basically, what I did is I knew an actor by the name of William Wyndham. He played Commodore Decker in the Doomsday Machine. He sent me a script he had, and I used that old script, and I typed up 2 stories, one for Voyager and one for Deep Space Nine. Now, back in those days, you didn't need an agent. You could send in 2 stories. I foolishly thought it was 2 stories to each series, but it was a total of 2. So both of those were promptly rejected. Now, not to be undone, I typed up a 3rd story and I put my grandfather's name on it and sent it in. And 2.5, 3 weeks later, I was in Hollywood.
Oh, wow.
So I sat across from Ron Moore, and for the next 3 years of Star Trek, Deep Space Nine, I pitched to them. The premise of my story, which they couldn't use at the time, was the producer of Voyager, Jerry Taylor. She wanted to keep Voyager characters just to herself. But my premise was, what would Captain Sisko and crew have to do if the relatives of Voyager showed up on Deep Space Nine demanding to know what happened to Voyager? Missing in Action was the name of the story.
Nice.
So they in fact, I went so far as when they got the script, Ron was looking for the script, and he asked Michael, his assistant, where's the script? And he goes, it's right there in front of you. And he goes, my God, it looks just like one of ours. Because I'd found out what covers they were using and everything like that, and made a screen ready story for them. So a lot of accolades. So from that, I don't want to disparage anybody, but Hollywood is a vicious place and can be a vicious place, even with all the politics and everything like that. So I didn't make any sales for those 3 years. I did see ideas that I suggested turn up. So I came back because the money can only go so far. LA is pretty expensive. And we were getting FedEx and UPS and all that stuff. It's easier to do things from a distance. Right. So I ended up coming back here, and I was offered a chance to work at the first military station, which was down on Distillery Commons here in Louisville. That lasted for a few years until the chief financial officer embezzled, I think it was $16 million, and the station collapsed. So I decided I didn't want to work for anybody ever again. I had enough of that. So I created my own military technical advising business. And then I got that out there because a lot of people in Hollywood knew me. And I was providing stock footage, technical advising advice, and so forth. And that went along well. But when the bottom kind of began to change, I don't want to say fell out, but things changed in 2008. So I went back and decided that I would do some more writing. So I have been a writer, working on different things in addition to the technical advising, prop building, and all that stuff. And my agent is a guy by the name of Evan Schofin. I'm represented by Lux Hammer Studios, the people that did The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. And my co-writer, Dana, and I have a couple of scripts out there. One has just been selected to be read at Cannes. So we might have a sale there, which is about a horse in the Korean War, based on a true story. And then we have a vampire movie with what we think is a really different twist by the name of Vilkova.
Nice.
And that can be really
I'm a vampire guy, so we're gonna stay in contact because
that one might be up your road. In the meantime, we have other projects going on, and like I say, I really don't do the stock footage part anymore because the industry has changed, and it's hard to protect your film these days with the event of AI and the internet and everything else. The Europeans were the first to start like. You sent us some stuff. Good luck on getting your money. So they were kind of cut out of the mix. And now I just don't even bother to send, people contact me for stock footage. I'm like, you can get it from some other sources. So
confirm or deny, Captain, if I go to New Orleans, will I meet a vampire?
Well, the guy's name Tom
I'm
Cruise.
freaking counting on
I
it.
don't know.
Who? Write that name down, Maria, because we're going to New Orleans. Who?
Yeah. Yep. If that's the one you're thinking of, that's the one, the only vampire I know, right? And in all fairness, I worked on the movie Elizabethtown, and he and his wife at the time were I think the executive producers.
Was that who's the leading guy? It was the guy from the
Orlando
Pirates.
Bloom.
Orlando Bloom. Yeah, Pirates of the Caribbean.
Orlando Bloom. I'm actually in the movie, but you cannot see me because when Orlando Bloom comes into the to register at the hotel, there's a young actress there. I am actually down. She's sitting on top of my head, and I'm down operating the computer screen.
Oh, wow.
So there's Hollywood magic. Yes, no screen credit for me on that other than getting a nice paycheck.
I'm still have this visual of someone sitting on top of your head.
Oh, well, I've done worse things in the Air Force, so I could care less, right? It's like,
yeah, we know how you guys are. Before we shut this down, I have to get your take. How when it comes to this whole UAP, ET, UFO angle and how things are happening with our government, that's this disclosure thing. Have you been following it? What's your take? I mean, Mantell story would fall under like an experiencer or a military, well, all the military guys who have claimed, that they've had these encounters. What has been your take when it comes to all these, the hearings where these experts, the military people have shared their stories, and then go back to what Captain Mantell experienced and can still say it was just a balloon or the Navy or whatever?
Right. Well, obviously, if I'm not there to give you an eyewitness account, I can't say, hey, I saw a UFO and I saw it do this, or a UAP and I saw it do this. But let's reference the X-Files. Remember in the one where Rhys Davis is bit or by a human and becomes human and all that stuff, and Mulder's trying to get it with his camera and his camera app doesn't work and stuff. Well, that's funny, but the reality is, think of the surveillance equipment that is available to us. Why is fighter aircraft footage still in black and white? Why is there not any color? Why is there not better shots of the item that we need? Well, we can say, well, it was going too fast. But when I look at some of that stuff, I look and say, where was that footage taken? How close was it to this country? How close was it to that country? How close was it to this base, that base? Fill in the other blank. I think a lot of it can actually be explained because I would think at this point, a higher power is going to just, be able to tell us they exist.
Shawn, don't be a party pooper.
No, I'm sorry. I'm trying not to be. I'm just saying. And the government's not going to be able to cover that up. If a ship lands on the Belvedere down there and a bunch of people get out, that's going to be kind of hard to cover. So
okay, this is good. This is good. One and to this for one last question on this. So what you're saying is that we have technology that is, 50 years advanced, and we're testing it. We're doing it underwater. We're doing it, in space. We're doing it in all kinds of locations. I do believe that to a high degree, but did we also get some of this technology from other sources? Has it been here before? There's a lot of interesting theories, from the consciousness theory to the intertemporal with Michael Masters, who talks about they're from our future and they have the technology to be able to travel backwards, warp space-time. I don't know. I'm not, that's the great thing about Still Unexplained. It's still unexplained for me, but it's interesting to consider some of that. I do believe we have technology that is far more advanced than we say. The director of Lockheed Martin, even CEO, even made a commercial that was never really aired. It was an in-house commercial about how they have technology where you can touch the outside of the craft and it will respond to the touch of your hand. And it was fascinating. So, and there was another military personnel or someone said that if you've seen Star Trek, we can do exactly what Star Trek does. We have that technology already. You're just not going to see it anytime soon. I thought that was fascinating. Do I believe that? Sure. My imagination sees that it's possible. What are your thoughts, Shawn?
Well, I would say, let's look at AI. I'm not a big fan of AI. It's here, but I think it needs to be controlled.
I agree with that. I do.
Yeah, just the war. The Air Force has been banding around for some years now about removing the people from the silo and doing the whole war games thing. And I can list to you like 999 ways that can go south real quick. It's not a good idea. So if we have this technology that is, if we have it, one should assume that a lot of times the government has it beforehand and can manipulate that. So there's a conspiracy theory that I would go for. They manipulate things to get you to believe what they want you to believe or stay away from things that they want you to stay away from.
Sure.
So going back 50 years, like I said, if Mantell is flying and he is a fixed wing fighter pilot, and he's been in a C-47 and he sees all of this stuff, but now there's an aircraft that is traveling above him at a high rate of speed, and this thing is changing its position. But he doesn't know what this aircraft is capable of. But to him, it's something that's like, wait a minute, is this a Japanese plane attacking? Is it a Russian plane? What's going on here? So he's looking at it from that standpoint, most probably. What is this threat? Hence, it cost him his life. So I look at all these things and go, yeah, and if somebody's coming back from the future, as you postulate, or people have postulated, why? What is it that they're having to change? And then it's not really our future anymore. In my mind, they've altered future by giving this technology. That's like the Star Trek temporal wars on Enterprise, if you remember. Right. It's like, what's the purpose? So
you Trekkies.
Yeah, I know. I tell you. Well, Enterprise is about where I dropped off, because again, you're looking at me. Everything is story. If you got a good story, you got something. But you got to, again, it's what does a character learn or fail to learn? Okay, there you go. So the secret's out. Or in the case of a horse, what does the horse learn or fail to learn? Right. So, I guess you can see where I'm going with this is I'm a bit of a doubting Thomas on some issues. It would be foolish not to do anything, but okay, you got me on the Trek thing. Insufficient facts invites danger, Mr. Spock once said, as written. And I think that is a good thing to use. Insufficient facts invites danger, but you've got to get the facts. If you just grab at everything, then you might overlook what the truth is. And that is something that you don't want to do, because the ideal is, let me put it this way. Being a kid of the 80s, as it were, what was that? John Fogerty song, two of them, authority always wins. And second, rock and roll girls, life is just a rodeo. You got to make it to the end of the bell. So we have to make it to the end of the bell. And what we experience along that path is what defines us. And you can either use it for good or you can use it for bad. Hopefully what I've done has been able to use things for good, and will, tell the story of one man on a day, January 7th, 1948, and what led to his death and the consequences thereof.
For the record, Captain Shawn, for the record, Captain Shawn, if you quote a song, you can't say it, you got to sing it. Just
no. Now, if my dad was here,
no. If you quote a song, you have to sing it. You can't. The other thing, I've already established, you're not Mulder, you're Scully.
Interesting you should say that. I have one of Scully's badges.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, from the newer stuff show.
That's
still
awesome.
My all-time favorite show.
I have a lot of props from the most recent Project Blue Book.
Oh, do you?
The one on the History Channel?
I think it was on during the pandemic, actually. But both of those shows were filmed in Canada, and there was a person up there that they sold the stuff off, and then he knew I liked it, and he got a hold of me and said, you want this stuff? And I'm like, yeah, I'll take it.
Sure.
Nice. Okay.
Captain Shawn, we'd love to have you back. Would you come back and visit us sometime?
If you feel I can be of any use, sure.